Hola, bienvenido, buenos dias, hello. My name is Sam, and welcome to More Colombian Than an Arepa podcast. We are so excited to have our friend here, Keith, joining us on our special edition of Life in Colombia podcast. So welcome, Keith. We are so happy that you're joining us. Why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from? Yeah, go ahead and get started.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to participate and talk with you today. So, my name is Keith Hetrick. I'm 35 years old. I'm from the United States, state of Virginia, close to Washington, D.C. And I've been living in Colombia for a bit, and I'm happy to talk more about that.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so let's just dive right in.
Sure.
So where in Colombia do you live right now?
In this moment,
Yes.
just outside of the actual city of Medellin, but in Sabaneta, not too far, just a few minutes drive, or metro.
Okay. And tell me why Sabaneta? Like, how did you get into Sabaneta? And tell me a little bit about your story getting to Colombia.
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question. Well, I think first I'll talk about, why Colombia, because that's a very good question. I think a lot of people ask that question.
Yes.
And for me, my first experience in Colombia was in 2019. So this wasn't my first rodeo, so to speak. But in 2019, I came here with two of my amigos around Christmas time. We decided on Colombia for no good reason other than we were all living in different states and wanted to go to some place that was relatively the same, economically speaking, financially speaking, for all of us. And the weather was good here, and in the United States it wasn't. So we came to Colombia. Visited a few different cities, including Medellin and Bogota and Cartagena, which I think are some of the more popular places that people go to, at least in their first experience. And during that visit, I felt something really special about this place, about this, not only Medellin, but Colombia in general. And, I couldn't exactly put a fingerprint on what that was, but, the combination of just the beautiful people here, inside and out, and how friendly they are and how welcoming they are, and very, very clear familial values that are present everywhere, and you can just feel that, is something that I was really drawn to. And I love to travel in general, and I've been to many, many other countries in Europe and South America, Central America, and being someone who loves those types of experiences and having the experience of new cultures, I always aim to go to different places. And I think for the first time ever, Colombia was a place where I felt like I really wanted to come back. And yes, all the other countries I've been to in many senses have been great too, and I have that same sort of feeling, but it's always usurped by, like, I need to experience other countries. But for some reason, Colombia was like, you know what, I would come back here for a number of reasons that we can get into if we want. So, that was my first experience. I had a couple more vacation short experiences. But when I was presented with the opportunity to come somewhere for what ended up being 6 months, it was a no-brainer that Colombia would be the place to do it. The second question
Yes.
about Sabaneta.
Oh, wait, before we move on to the second question, let me ask you, because the first time you came to Colombia was during December, like during the most wonderful time of year here.
Correct.
How were you just completely blown away with Christmas time in Colombia?
Of course.
It's amazing,
I was
right?
completely blown awway by Colombia.
Yeah, true.
It just wasn't what I expected or what I had heard. And that's the best way to put it. Like, completely unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I left wanting to come back, almost sad. Like, what am I saying almost? I was sad.
Yeah.
I went home and, my mom was like, how was it? And I was like,
I know.
I need to go back.
I know. There's something, that's what I always tell people, is that there's
Yeah.
something about it here that every time you leave, you're like, you're leaving kicking and screaming
Yeah.
because you don't want to go.
Yeah.
They say the most dangerous thing about Colombia and Medellin in general is that you will never want to leave, which is kind of the truth.
Medellin is great for
Yeah.
a number of reasons that we can get into, but
Yeah.
there's so much diversity and cultural experiences outside of Medellin
Yeah.
in places that people may hear of if they start Googling what to do in Colombia. Cartagena specifically, I think, is a big tourist destination, but the other cities too are absolutely beautiful and have their own unique cultural experiences, which
Totally.
are incredible. Like Cali, like my time in Cali and learning salsa was incredible.
Love it.
Incredible.
I love it. Okay,
Everyone
are you a
there
good
should
salsa
be on
dancer?
Dancing with the Stars, but and I feel inadequate, but I learned so much, and it was just an incredible experience.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so sorry I interrupted you, but going back to Sabaneta. So what made you end up in Sabaneta? Did you live in different neighborhoods in Medellin before moving there? Tell me
Sure.
a little bit about why Sabaneta.
So, like I said, I've been to Colombia before, and this is my third time in Medellin specifically. My decision to come to Colombia was specifically like almost like a no-brainer. Medellin would be the place because it's, great for vacations and short periods of time. But I think of all the cities that I have experienced, it's an incredible place to live. And since I was coming here for longer, I thought Medellin was a no-brainer decision for me. Now, as someone who'd only been here for a short amount of time, each of my experiences, I think it's very easy to do your research or talk to other people that have been here who have had similar visits. Will tell you about El Poblado, which is a great, neighborhood in and of itself.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And, whether it's like a quick day activity or a couple day activity, there's a lot you can do from El Poblado.
I'd love for you to explain your experience living in different parts of Medellin and moving to Sabaneta, because Sabaneta is not always like the most common place that you'll find foreigners like specifically moving to. So what got you to Sabaneta?
Well, for starters, before I came here, before my 6 months to Medellin, I didn't know what Sabaneta was.
Right.
So it's a surprise for me, as it is for probably a lot of the listeners about Sabaneta.
Yes.
But I think as someone who's from another country, it's very easy to come to Medellin and do some research and figure out that El Poblado is at least a good starting point.
Yes.
And for me, it was no different. I had been here before, and El Poblado was where I stayed, and that's kind of all I knew from my own experience and the research that I did. I kept my plans relatively open, and I didn't come here with an apartment booked for 6 months for that reason,
Oh, that's
because
nice.
I wanted to be open to, each day
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and the experience that Colombia and Medellin specifically had in store for me.
Did you stay in like a hostel, or did you stay in a co-working? Like, where did you
Yeah.
stay in El Poblado?
A couple places.
Okay.
It started, so I took and have been taking Spanish classes. And so my first 8 weeks here, I actually lived in the school.
Oh, cool.
And
oh, wow. That's a lot of immersion into
It was an
Spanish.
immersive experience with a little bit of English, because a lot of the people that attended
Yeah.
were extranjeros,
Right.
travelers, and they spoke English or German or French, and it wasn't as immersive as it could be. But during the day, obviously, it was all Spanish. Some of my teachers didn't even speak English, and I think
Love
that was
it.
really good for me.
Yeah. Great way to learn.
I continued to live in El Poblado after those first 8 weeks, in an apartment.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly how much longer I stayed in that area, maybe a month
Yeah.
and a half around. But as I said, I was open to things, so I didn't book too far in advance. And based on my own experiences and visiting places and talking to Colombianos and getting recommendations,
Yeah.
I decided that I really wanted to experience other places. And I
Nice.
spent some time in Laureles, spent some time in Envigado, and each of those places, had their own different cultural experiences and benefits.
Yeah.
And then I eventually landed in Sabaneta, and I have been living there for 2 months. And unfortunately, I'm leaving very soon.
No.
Actually, this Sunday.
No.
I know, it's very sad. I'm very sad about that. But for me, Sabaneta has been the best place that I have spent time in for living, and I think that's because the experience is really Colombian.
Yeah.
The people there are más o menos
Yeah.
only Colombian. You'll run into some travelers, but it's less frequent, and it can be as busy as you want it to be because it's a place with a lot of fiestas.
Yes, I love that about Sabaneta.
And it's also you walk a few blocks away from it, like its main park and the town square, and you can be very very much in your own mind and be very solitude and get your work done. And that's exactly why I wanted to experience it, and it was an amazing experience and continues to be, and it'll forever hold a very very strong place in my heart.
I love it.
Like I said, I didn't know existed before.
Yeah.
And I do now. And I think that's, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. I love Sabaneta, and we've been going to Sabaneta so much recently because I had no idea what Sabaneta was before. And it is just such an amazing community there. Yep. And I think the difference is that, like, for if you don't know what Sabaneta is just like 15 minutes away from Medellin by car. You can get there by metro. Yeah. You can get there by public transit. It's technically not in Medellin. It's its own municipality, right. But like it's kind of like a neighborhood. It's
Correct.
Close. It's nearby.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people would go down there to especially eat some like really good Colombian food, like delicious buñuelos and arepas and all of the yumminess.
And it's a little more affordable too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So Sabaneta is amazing, and I love that you've spent some time there. Do you think that if you returned, you would go back to Sabaneta, or how did it compare against like Envigado or Laureles or some of the other neighborhoods?
I try to take things one day at a time, to not plan too far ahead. But I mean, I love Sabaneta, and I would absolutely go back. Oh, yeah. And someday, if it's in the plans, I would maybe even consider being there for longer. Yeah. Like you said, it's not technically in Medellin. Yeah. But like even in talking with other Colombians, they'd be like, it kind of is. Yeah.
It's like kind of,
Because, a lot of people do, commute to the city for work. And stuff like that. Yeah. And the metro is just as accessible to Medellin as, other barrios as well. And, I took it this morning to go to El Poblado, and it took like 10 minutes. Obviously there's a little bit of walking that was involved that took a little bit more time, but it's super easy. And yeah, I feel really comfortable living there. Oh, living there is the key word. Yeah. It's great to have a vacation experience there as well. Mm-hmm. And, I had people visit me from the United States while I was there, and they're really grateful for the experience of Sabaneta specifically as well, because they wouldn't have known about it otherwise.
It's much more, it's very authentic, I think.
That is exactly the word. Yeah. It's very authentic.
So, okay, you mentioned a little bit about Spanish, and I'd love to know if you spoke any Spanish before you came, and if you've learned a lot since you've been here.
Yeah. So I've been to Colombia a few times. Right. And each of the previous times, of which there were 3, this is my 4th and much longer, I didn't have any Spanish experience, and everything was totally fine. Yeah. I obviously in coming to Colombia and kind of falling in love with this place, I developed a love for Latin culture, and specifically the desire to want to learn Spanish. Yeah. And I did start a group back home, which was around, it wasn't too immersive, but it gave me exposure. Yeah. A little bit to Spanish. I wouldn't say that I really learned too much. I've never had any previous experience of actual education, but when I came here, that is when I started to learn in earnest, because I did and have been going to school to learn Spanish, and I have learned a lot. And I think specifically my experience in the different, barrios of Colombia within the surrounding areas of Medellin, specifically Sabaneta, have really helped me a lot because, I have really bad orejas, and for my ears are really bad, and listening to people is very difficult.
It's hard.
And
it's so hard.
And when I'm in the street and need to talk to people, it was really hard. And in school, the grammar and learning about the future and the present, the pasados is great. But, actually having conversations with people was a lot more difficult. So being in Sabaneta and immersing myself in that is like another level of growth in the language that I really, truly appreciate.
Totally. Well, you have to get a confidence. It's one thing when you learn the language, and it's another thing speaking to someone in a different language.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but you have
so
to be
uncomfortable.
comfortable and uncomfortable, because I don't want to come off as rude or boring or hard on people.
Right.
And Colombians are great.
They're so amazing.
They appreciate it and they want to help.
Yeah.
But it's me, the one who needs to be okay and being uncomfortable, because I'm the one that feels bad. I'm I don't really speak that well.
Yeah.
But I've met a ton of people here, and some people, my time between seeing them lapses by, it has months, and they're like, wow, you got so much better. I don't, living day to day.
Totally.
I don't notice it, but they're like, holy cow, we just had a full conversation. That's I've learned a lot.
Cool. Great. Congratulations. That's so
Thank
fun.
you. I need to continue practicing.
Yeah. Once you get back, you can't lose it. You have to keep going. You have to keep practicing. But
that's what I want.
Okay. So I loved your story when I first heard it. And I would really, really like for you to just tell me a little bit about what you're doing here.
Sure.
And maybe before we go into that, what was your work back in the United States, and what are you doing here, and what got you here?
Yeah, and those things are related, so that works out well. And please interrupt if you want to expand on any of it. But I work at a large consulting company. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say the name. There's nothing wrong with saying the name. It's a very public company, but they'd probably yell at me. So
That's okay.
I just won't do that. And I'm a data scientist at that company. And I've been there for a while. And something that they offer, a benefit that they offer, is the opportunity to apply to a sabbatical of 6 months.
Cool. So cool.
I know. It's something that I'm very grateful to have had the experience to actually do. Now, for me specifically, why I came to Colombia for my sabbatical is somewhat of a very separate story, but, the vehicle was the sabbatical. I have had some experiences in the past that are unfortunate on the medical illness side of things in my life. It all began when I was 14, and I've experienced multiple other things throughout my time, and I think I mentioned I'm 35. So, and in a way, having had those experiences it started with terminal brain cancer, and ended up developing an unruptured brain aneurysm, and I actually had a stroke when I was 25, and developed 2 more brain tumors when I was 32. Each of those experiences has been different levels of suffering, and what I've learned through those experiences, from both what I would consider miraculous survivals and just approaching life and how to get through sufferings and finding peace through that, is something that I in 2021 felt a call to really share with other people. And not to get into too many details, but there was a point in time when it became very clear to me that I needed to get away to do that, because I was too busy with the dealings of the United States and my job back home, and really dedicating myself to putting my best effort into sharing this into a book was something that I couldn't do. And so, a couple of years leading up to this, the notion of using the sabbatical and applying for that, and using the 6 months that I would have, a big part of that was to write my book.
Write a book.
And in conjunction with that, I wanted to study Spanish. And so my time here in the sabbatical was to do just that, to study Spanish and go to Spanish school. And to write my book, which, I've written the first draft of. And
wow, you wrote the whole first draft here.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes.
Congratulations.
Yes,
That's so amazing.
obviously there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
And, God willing,
Yeah.
there will be other steps along the way
Right.
that'll just come, as far as editing. And if, God willing, publishing, that'll happen, and I can share that. And I also have a goal to eventually translate it to Spanish for all my Colombianos who I've met and want to hear my story. But I think that's the answer for the 6 months specifically. But the other question, which I get a ton of questions to the reasoning why, is why did you do it in Colombia?
Right, exactly.
Colombia.
Yeah.
And
if you
that's a
had
great
this
question.
6-month sabbatical, like, why didn't you go? I mean, I know you loved Colombia, but why didn't you go to Italy or Australia or England or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's so many reasons why, from a very basic level, Colombia was the place to go.
Yeah.
One, it wasn't my first time being here. So there was that level of comfort.
Right.
Two, I did fall in love with this country.
Yeah.
Three, it's not too far from the United States and
Right,
relatively the same time zone.
Totally.
And being in communication with my family and friends back home. And if anything happened, it wasn't difficult to have those communications and go back home. But from like a secondary level, like why Colombia, I don't truthfully know, especially coming here. In the first place, I had this understanding that, I felt this innate draw, like almost calling to use Colombia as that place.
I love it.
And I was open to the experience and what I needed to get out of being here in Colombia. But when it came to the decision to need to get away and use a sabbatical to do that, there was never any doubt or hesitation that Colombia would be the place because of my previous experiences and the level of comfort that I had with it.
That's amazing. Okay, so then you're writing this book. Has Colombia has being here in Colombia like impacted or inspired or been any part of your journey of writing this first draft of your book? Because that's a big lift for 6 months. So has it played a role in that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question. I've grown as a person. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of great people. And in a way, I needed to get away, and Colombia was a great place. But in a way, I also needed to be somewhat alone, right?
Yeah.
I needed to come in without a
Yes.
community. I
Yeah.
needed to come in without, no one was traveling with me,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
really be you, like be by yourself.
Be
and
open to
be
the experience.
Open. Yes, I love that.
And in doing so, I encountered people from, both sides of the spectrum of people that helped me and guided me in how to write a book. Things that, when I would share my story with them, I ran into an author who was from the United States, and he was like, let's talk. And I don't want to share his name because I didn't ask him. but like, he provided a lot of guidance.
Yeah.
And, I think it was very valuable to me. Like, that's just one small example.
Yeah.
But I've met, going to school, a lot of travelers from not only the United States, but, France and other places, and made great friends. And I've shared things with them that have had impacts on how they, approach life. And obviously, their time was a little shorter.
Yeah,
I think my time in general, from the people that I've encountered that aren't Colombian, it's a little longer. But I almost feel like I forgot what you asked.
No, you answered it. No, it's so good because like I think that what you're saying too is that like you have built a life here over the last 6 months, and part of this life was like this book, like writing your book and like being fully present here so that you can do something like that.
Yeah, and the Colombian side of it specifically, like the Colombian people.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
They're amazing.
They're so friendly.
Yeah.
And something bad. For example, there's not like one specific thing that I'm speaking to, but like the perspective that they all have, they could have just gotten to an accident or had a terrible morning, and you could ask them how they're doing. They'd be like, "Todo bien, gracias a Dios." Every single person.
It's right. Yeah.
And, you know, that sort of mentality and perspective that they embody is something that I'm aware of, but also it's like, it was, you know, transformative for me too, to really, you know, value each day and be open to opportunities. And, you know, if someone that I meet on the street and get to know, you know, wants to take me on a trip to a little pueblito, be open to that experience. And I think that's really the key, is just being open to things. And I learned a ton about myself. I learned a ton and added a ton of lessons into my book from my encounters here.
Oh, I love it.
And, you know, it goes back to the question of why Colombia. Yeah, I didn't truthfully know all the answers to it, but looking back, it's very clear that being in Colombia was the right choice. And, you know, I learned things and I had encounters that I needed to have.
Yeah. You know, I always say that in the United States, there's this like part of our culture there that we're always thinking about tomorrow. Like, we're always moving forward. We're never like, we can't take the time to look at right now. And like what you're saying is essentially like exactly how I feel too when it comes to Colombia, because the moment I've never felt more present in my life than when I live or have spent any time here, you know. And I think that that's beautiful that you have found that too in this journey that you've been here, which is so fantastic. And again, congratulations on the book. I can't wait for it to come out. I can't wait to read it.
There's still a long way to go, but
I'm going to be first in line when that comes out. That's so amazing.
Well, thank you. And like you said, I almost like center myself every morning. It's like, today's today, and tomorrow is not something I'm thinking about. And a phrase that I say every day to many people is un día a la vez. One day at a time. And that's so important. Not just from my Colombian experience, but my journey throughout my life. And, you know, I truly think that everybody, no matter what you're going through and different levels of suffering, particularly, that small line can go a long way to growth in life and progress. And that's what we all strive for.
Okay, so Keith, you are fantastic, and your story is incredible and so powerful, and I just love, it's like, it makes me kind of emotional to like think about everything that you've been through. And I love that you have been able to write this important book that is so impactful in your life and is going to impact so many people who are experiencing or have experienced something like that themselves or with their loved ones. And I think that it is so beautiful that you chose Colombia and Colombia chose you to be here, to like be part of this like really, really important time in your life. So first, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm like trying not to cry because like you're so fantastic, and you're just like so strong and just wonderful.
Oh, thank you. And God willing, it will be shared with other people.
Yes, I hope so. And like I said, I'll be first in line to get that book. But okay, so I thought maybe we would close out with some rapid fire questions about your experience here in Colombia, since you're going to be leaving in a couple of days. So the first one, let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Have you had any culture shock living here?
You know what? No, because it's not my first time.
Yes.
I think my first time, I was completely surprised by literally everything and the people. The biggest shock for me, honestly, was, you know, how much I wanted to actually experience other places around Colombia. And a lot of the weekends I went to pueblitos, Jardín, Guatapé, Santa Fe, San Carlos, San Rafael, Carcona.
All such good pueblitos.
All amazing. I think that's another beautiful thing about Colombia, is that there's so many vast experiences. It's such a small place.
I know.
But that's probably, I wouldn't really call that a culture shock. It was more like cultural immersion, and I absolutely loved it.
Love it. Okay. Favorite Colombian food?
Okay. Tough question. I think my answer is boring.
That's okay. It's never boring. Never boring here in Colombia.
Because I'm living here, when I go out to eat, I guess, a lot of times it's alone. I've obviously gone out with people and people I've met, and those have been fun. But I really like the simple, typical comida, menu del dia style.
Yes.
Like, your chicken, your rice, your frijoles or beans, with a little sweet, like a plantano maduro. I think the plantano maduro might be my favorite food by itself, but because I have a sweet tooth. But yeah, when I say it's boring, it's because it's very basic, but it's so good.
Gosh, it's so different though. It's like
so
sounds
hearty,
basic,
the same time, healthy,
it's
right?
Yes.
Doesn't
I feel
make
like
me want to take a siesta.
Yes. And I feel like the rice, for some reason, like the rice is just so good in those menu del dias. So
I could do it every day.
Great choice. Okay, are you an aguardiente guy?
Well, I've had it. Let's go with that. I would not continue the use of it. Totally recommend trying it. But I'll stick to other choices. Of beverages.
Okay, and let's say, what's your favorite Colombian phrase, like a slang that you've learned here?
Oh man, ¿Qué más pues?
I love it. ¿Qué más pues? Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm trying to think. I mean, everyone here says gracias a Dios. I don't know if that's uniquely Colombian, but that's a big one. Any particular other phrase? Que chévere is a good one.
Yes, so good, so good. There's so many good phrases here, aren't there?
Yeah, it's
amazing.
There's so many things that I don't even know. Right?
Yeah, totally.
There's so much more I could learn. But,
for sure. I've learned a lot over the last couple of days too, and I'm like, I feel like sometimes Colombian Spanish is almost like slang Spanish oftentimes, but it's so beautiful. They speak so beautifully here.
I think it's a great place to learn Spanish.
It is.
Because it is it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And I think that Colombianos are just the nicest people. So they love when you even practice Spanish with them. So if you make mistakes, they're totally okay with it.
I've had so many conversations with Colombians, and I go into it, I'm like, my Spanish is not good. And they're like, what are you talking about?
It's great.
It's amazing.
And I'm like only speaking present tense.
I'm like, I don't believe you.
I'm talking about something that happened a year ago, only in present tense. Yeah. No. Okay, so a couple more. Are you going to come back?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I don't have plans to come back, but that doesn't mean I don't want to come back. I absolutely need plans to come back.
Yeah.
And I don't like getting too ahead of myself, but, I think someday it would be amazing to spend a lot more time here. I may have mentioned that already, but Colombia holds a really special place in my heart. And
Love it.
Okay. I might get emotional.
I know. No, you can't get emotional because then I'm going to get emotional.
Because I'm leaving. I'm leaving so soon. And I'm so appreciative, right?
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative of myself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No. It's hard. Like we said, like the hardest part about like anything here is leaving, and it's like it's been such an important piece of your life and a really key part of this transition in your life. And I think that that's only natural to feel that like real deep sadness.
Having lived here, and every time has been hard, but this is the hardest because I've lived here and I've gotten to understand living here, and I've met so many great people and the value that Colombia really brought to me.
Definitely. So, okay, another quick question. What is your most favorite memory or experience in your 6 months being here in Colombia?
Wow.
Of course, besides filming or recording this podcast, right?
Yeah, that goes without saying.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if I can pinpoint one specific thing. But I really think embracing the culture and meeting people and having encounters is amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And being open to different things was a surprise, sorpresa para mi vida.
Yes.
But, also just incredible. Like, I had so many great experiences.
Yeah.
And, having lived here, it's a little different than a normal vacation.
Totally.
And I think the more that you can spend a little time here and put yourself out there and meet people and, go on that day excursion or multiple day excursion to Retiro or Jardín. Those are really the moments that I will never forget. I'll never forget Colombia.
Totally.
These 6 months, but like each of those like weekends, they were really special.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Keith, for joining. Muchísimas gracias. We are so lucky that you joined our podcast. You are definitely more Colombian than an arepa.
Soy paisa.
You're paisa, exactly. No. And we are so lucky that you joined us. We'll be following your journey, and we will, again, be the first ones in lines to get your book. If there's any way that people can follow you or stay connected to you, feel free to share and let people know when to look for your book or anything out there.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here today, and I think this is great. And I'm excited for the future of this podcast for you all. As far as my book is concerned, my name's Keith Hetrick. I'll obviously we'll be in touch.
Yeah, good.
I don't have any other means to share that, but God willing, it will be an actual book that will be shared, and I'll be sure to communicate with you all about that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. If you are just joining in for the first time to this podcast, we are Sam and Nick. We moved permanently to Medellin, Colombia with our dog. We actually got another dog. She's our Paisa pup here in Medellin. And we have a social media channel. We have a social media channel at Colombia_expats at pretty much every social media that you can find us on: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, all the fun stuff. So make sure to go follow us over there. Also follow our podcast: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the fun stuff. Again, at more Colombian than an arepa. And we hope you stay tuned. We have lots of amazing more stories out there with people who have lived and breathed this beautiful country. Muchísimas gracias. Again, Keith, we are so lucky that you joined us. And until next time, hasta pronto.